All right, good morning, guys. This morning we have Dr. Tom Hyde. He is one of our members in the ACA Sports Council. He's been around for a few years now, and he's somebody that I really look up to here in the Sports Council, so I'm really glad to have him on this morning.
Good morning. It's nice to be here, and I hope the weather is great there where you are.
Yeah, we're having some pretty nice weather. It's sunny and 80s now, so it's hopefully we're starting to get on that warm-up trend. How about you?
Yeah, we've had a lot of cold weather. I mean, very, very brutally cold weather with wind and everything. So I think I'm going to take a few days next week and get out of this climate.
Sounds like a good plan. So we were talking this morning about just some of the history that goes into Sports Council. I know a lot of the new doctors, myself included, are still learning a lot about that. And so that was one of the things we wanted to talk about this morning.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And I'll just give a kind of a brief overlay because I know some of the people that are listening may not know all of the people who were involved, particularly when it started back in 1974 and then up until recently here. But I'd like to at least shout out a few names of the prominent people who were important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, in 1974, it was the brainchild of several chiropractors led primarily by Lenny Schroeder, who was an athletic trainer and a chiropractor. And he was in the Chicago area, and he put together a group that had to then go to the ACA and get them to okay the origin of a sports council under the ACA. And then that group stayed in power for approximately 13 years and had a pretty good run, but they had maybe 200 or 300 members at the most, if I recall. And then in New Orleans, Bob Hazel from New Jersey challenged the ACA Sports Council board because typically they were supposed to be there for 2 terms and then come off the board. So they were there 13 years. At any rate, Bob took over and then brought in a new board at that time. And then the Sports Council really began to grow. Bob was a very energetic guy with a lot of wonderful ideas. He brought on John Danchek, who's a Hall of Fame member and an incredible guy who was part of that. Mike Leahy actually joined us pretty quickly. Jimmy Rayberger from Illinois was there as well. Really, really nice guy. Jan Corwin, who went to the Olympics in 1988, was a member of that board early on. And they asked me to join them. I began as the secretary. But during the next decade or so, the Sports Council really began to grow, and we went up to approximately 2,000 members from a few hundred. So during that time, we also had 2 programs, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. So we had 2 seminars per year. We had Sports Talk, which was published and printed back then before the era here of electronic media. And that was published 4 times a year. We had like a spring, winter, fall, and summer issue. We covered all kinds of sports. At that time, we had a list of people who were prominent and connections in virtually all the sports that are seen in the United States. And they became coordinators, and then events in that particular sport, let's say wrestling, whoever was in charge of wrestling would send out a message to the members who had an interest in wrestling and participating, and then they had an option of showing up. All this was voluntary back then. So we did that with all the different sports. And then, of course, there were problems with getting into another state if you didn't have a license to treat. That started something else called Travel to Treat, where we went to some of the ACA and other organizations asking to help us. We were able to get a number of states to say, okay, if you're licensed here, then you come to this state. And there are different provisions in each of those states that allow you to come or not come. Some do not still. However, the ACA Sports Council should have a list of those somewhere. If you don't, let me know and we'll be glad to get that to you. There's still work to be done. And I would encourage people in various states that don't have a travel to treat plan to look into possibly starting one, because it really is beneficial to us. And now the other implication of that is traveling internationally. Some of the other countries now are saying, we want you to let us know if you're going to be here. Some of them will say, fine, not an issue. Others say, no, you have to go through a particular procedure. And like always, a lot of people just travel to the different state or different country. They don't notify anybody. They go do it. And that's great unless you wind up with an issue.
Right.
So I think NCMIC or other malpractice carriers here within the United States would have an issue with you traveling to a state that did not allow that without you notifying that state and getting permission. So that's kind of an early synopsis of the ACA Sports Council. Certainly there have been some really good things that have happened over the years, and so many different sports we've covered. As you know, we have a Hall of Fame, and we've got a few people in there. We elected the first female member a couple of years ago, Robin Hunter, out of Ohio. And our latest was, of course, Ira Shapiro from New Jersey. And you have John Danchek in there, the founder, of course, Lenny Schroeder. And then a guy that took care of Babe Ruth many, many years ago, Earl Painter. I mean, that was a long time ago. And Augie Bush. And I think Jan is not a member currently. But there are a few others in there that are just outstanding people who've contributed to the chiropractic profession, particularly in sports.
Can you talk a little bit about how things have changed as far as the chiropractor's role in sports medicine, kind of just over the years, and how it differs now as far as the treatment and stuff that we do for athletes?
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. There's so many changes. In the beginning, there was a CCSP program. It's changed and been modified so much over the years and improved. And I think that's one way we've tried to get a uniform certification where people pretty much know what to do when they go out. Then, of course, we have the Diplomate program now, which has taken the CCSP and expanded upon that. There are so many other courses that are out there now that are available that we did not have back then. All the different motion studies, the treatments, not only chiropractic, but going into manual and instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilizations. You have the fascia manipulation, you have FAKTR, you have Graston technique, you have all these techniques now and concepts that are out there to allow better treatment. I think the overall training, getting dual degrees now, we have chiropractors who are athletic trainers, or physical therapists, chiropractic MDs. We have them in various specialties, not just sports, but in neurology. And in, I think there are just so many more orthopedics. All these things have helped us to get better and better.
So that kind of is a good transition into something I kind of wanted to talk about too with you. This is something we kind of talked about in Denver a little bit. What advice would you give to either students, young doctors, on really preparing themselves to be ready for those roles? What classes, how would you encourage them to choose? Because there are so many choices, and it's kind of overwhelming. You know, as myself, I'm almost done with my first year in practice after school. And looking back on it, there's a lot of things I wish I would have taken advantage of in school that maybe I didn't. And at the same time, things that I did spend time on that maybe haven't helped me as much as I would have thought. So kind of what advice would you give to those people kind of getting ready to transition there?
Boy, that is a major
it's hard to sum up.
It's tough, and especially when you have to think about finances, particularly as a student, because most students already have a huge financial responsibility they have to take care of.
But those seminars are all a lot cheaper when you're a student too.
They are cheaper as a student. You're absolutely right. Oh my gosh, I would take. I would start, I think, with a lot of the manual courses. What we know now about fascia versus when I went through school, it's incredible. We were back in the days of the Model A, and now you're into the rocket age here with fascia and what's going on. So I would recommend people join the International Fascial Society. I think it's $100 or so a year. You get a subscription to the online journal, and you get to go to the courses at a discount. They have all kinds of things that are helpful with DVDs and on-site places. They have workshops. They have smaller things. The next International Congress will be in Berlin, I think, in October, November. It might be November. But I would certainly highly recommend that. Fascial manipulation has come a long way with the Stecos. So I would highly recommend that. A lot of people love active release technique. I know a lot of people now have gravitated towards FAKTR, which stands for functional and kinetic treatment with rehab. So it's just perfect for the athletic population. It uses instruments, or you can use manual techniques. It doesn't matter, because FAKTR is a concept. It's not a technique. So you can use any technique you've already learned virtually and put it in and plug it into the 5 concepts of FAKTR. Acupuncture, dry needling, SFMA, maybe another course they want to do, the Titleist course. Any of those courses that will teach you movement, doing McKinsey or some of the other courses like that, I think all of those are very, very helpful. And I hate to leave out anybody. People ask me about the CCSP and the Diplomate.
Yeah.
Personally, I think they're great. But if I had to do it again, I would probably go get a master's in sports or something along those lines. Because, as I've often said, everybody in the world knows what a master's or a PhD is. Nobody knows outside our profession, and not even within our profession sometimes, what a CCSP is. And that's unfortunate. Maybe we need to get that word out to more and more people. But there is still great training in those courses. I'm not saying don't take them, but there are others out there. Or I might even go to an athletic training program and have the dual degree there, because you're going to learn an awful lot in that program. An LMT, believe it or not. We have chiropractors who started out as massage therapists. They get a great knowledge of the human body and the soft tissues. So I think that's another possibility. People often look down on those people. They're great. There's some brilliant people out there who are LMTs. And we even have those who go into medical school, and they may become physiatrists. They don't all have to become surgeons. So there are lots of ways to cross-educate yourself. And just, again, I'm maybe remiss in some of the people who have outstanding courses. I apologize to them. But look into them. And then if you're not sure and you see a course, call one of us or call somebody that has additional knowledge about it, and then find out if it's a legitimate course and if it's worth your money and your time.
Yeah. And maybe kind of another transition to that or another transition from that would be for the new doctors that are looking to open and build their own practice, which is kind of the route that I went on when I came out of school. I kind of figured that at some point in time I'd have to start a business and build it. So I might as well do it right away instead of waiting. But what kind of advice would you give the people in my situation on building that sports practice and getting your name out in your community and in the area on that you're not, that you are really sports minded and you are qualified and able to help them?
Another great question. And having been there, getting out of school and having no money and being in debt, having a new baby, I've been there, done that, so I know a little bit about that. And, I think a lot of us have dreams when you come out of having this elaborate, beautiful office and things like that. But I've learned over the years, too, that it's not about the physical plant that you have. It's not about how big it is. You can do a lot with a single room. The chiropractor that I go to actually has it's 3 small rooms, a tiny office, a waiting room, and 1 treatment room. She is as good as anybody I've ever been to, very successful, low overhead, and she does a great job. She happens to be a DC, an LMT, and an ATC with a master's in sports. So that's a great combination. Yep. And I tell you what, she doesn't need any more than the room that she's got. She doesn't have that big, huge overhead. And I would caution about going to some of these people who want to lead you into how to build a big practice and get 1 million patients in your office and do billing. Just be cautious about some of those people and their claims and what the costs are involved with those. Go to somebody who's a mentor for you. There are plenty of chiropractors out there who would help a young doc who wants to open a sports practice or any practice, how to be successful. And it's like when I started, I didn't have very much room, but I learned how to do things in a small area and hold down the cost because I didn't have the money to do anything else. And we were very successful. We built a very nice practice. And as I got a little better bank account and started getting rid of debt, then I did go up a little bit, but I don't know that that's necessary. You got to be careful if you go in with someone and make sure you take whatever that contract is to someone with legal guidance and don't just sign it. You've got to look at so many things in there. And is it going to hamper you should you depart from that office with things like how many miles can you not practice from that practice? Are there any other fees? Are you going to owe them money? What kind of money? So just make sure that before you go, get some advice for someone who's been around for a while. And there are a lot of us out here who'll be glad to help anybody.
Yeah. How about where have you seen most doctors having success with really getting their start? Is it starting with local runners? Is it starting with just local gyms, high schools, where you go everywhere and anywhere you can? That's probably the answer.
Yeah, that's a good answer actually. But
how did you really get your start into treating athletes?
Well, it's kind of funny when people look at me now, they look and say, what? But I started in powerlifting.
Okay.
And I was competing and joined a gym. And then I've met a lot of other people in there, bodybuilding, just working out for maintenance or that kind of thing. But there were a few other powerlifters, not many. Most of them were bodybuilding, things like that. So I got to know those people. And I think they got to trust me. And then I was very fortunate where the Junior World Powerlifting Championships came to Miami, where I was at that time. And the director of Parks and Recreation happened to know me because I trained in their gym. And when they came, they had an orthopedic surgeon who was in charge of the United States Powerlifting Federation and the International Powerlifting Federation as the medical consultant. And he'd been using a chiropractor who could not come. So they asked me to go. I did. And he asked me if I would go to others. The other chiropractor decided to pull out for different reasons. So they asked me if I would come on and help coordinate powerlifting. So that kind of really helped me to get started. And then, of course, the people in the gym wanted to see you because you were going to these major meets. And we went to local meets. They weren't all international or all national, but I did all of those things. And then he went over into U.S. weightlifting. So I did that for a while, and then Mike Reed took that over and did a terrific job with that. But then regarding the local place, I did volunteer for things because I also started running. So I would treat runners, and then I would run in it, and I would treat them afterwards. Same thing, I did a biathlon, same kind of thing. And then I was asked to cover other events. And then I went into football. I wanted to do football, and the good thing is my brother-in-law was a football coach at a high school, and he wanted chiropractic care. So that was a battle between the orthopedic surgeon and the athletic trainer back then. It's a lot better today. But my brother-in-law quickly told him, he said, listen, I'm the coach here. I can decide who I want to work with us. And you guys have an option. You can work with him or you can take a hike. So anyhow, I got involved with them, and then he went to the University of Miami. And some of this is luck. It's just luck of the draw. You've got to be vigilant. You've got to watch every opportunity. But when he went there, he kind of asked that I come in and treat. So I did for a number of years, a lot of the University of Miami players. By the way, I never got paid for any of that. It was all voluntary.
Okay.
And then when Jimmy Johnson left and went to the Cowboys, the assistant head trainer went to the Dolphins, and I had been working with them. He called me and asked me to go to the Dolphins. That's how I got to the Dolphins.
Okay.
And So it was a long road. I did a lot of things in the dirt and grind, covered events that were incredible. I was involved with the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport. So we covered the Sunshine State Games, and we covered the senior games in the state of Florida and a lot of other events. And if your state doesn't have a Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sport, you could certainly help the governor and his group start one and then become involved with that. And then there's so many other things, going out to Rotary and Kiwanis and these civic clubs and speaking to them about what you do, but always be gracious about it. Don't be pushy. Just let them know that you're there. If they want to come see you, they will. So, I mean, that's kind of a nutshell, kind of quickly, but there are lots of opportunities. You just have to look and always be humble, always do the best job you can, and get as much education as you can.
So do you have any good stories from working with either the Dolphins or any good stories you can share from those times?
Well, I have to be careful, I think, with names, but at that time the head coach was, and I think he'd be okay with it, was Coach Don Shula. Mm-hmm. Had an opportunity to work with him when he was there, and then, of course, later Jimmy Johnson. So I think I had a good background with those people. And then at the University of Miami, there were some really good coaches. Jimmy Johnson was there as well. Some people would know who that is, maybe not some of the others. But I did have a chance to work with some really, really good people. And I thank my brother-in-law for getting me into those. So, and one of the top quarterbacks back then in that day, I'll never forget, first time I treated him. And this is a guy that commanded attention. When he'd walk into the training room, every player shut up because they had total respect for him. And I did an AP thoracic move on him. And, of course, you hear everything. Cracking. And he came off and I made him pass out because here I thought that he was serious. He was playing a joke on me. So it was not very funny when you have the top quarterback in the league, a Hall of Famer, telling you those things. But other than that, I had some great experiences with him, became friends with some of the players. So it was nice. And the good thing is now, look, all the teams have a chiropractor now, don't they?
Yeah.
And now hockey, by the way, has a team signed that thanks to Palmer out in Arizona there where you are.
Yep.
He's done a very good job, Alan Palmer, with baseball, with the umpires, with now the hockey league, and also he's worked with other things. So I thank him and a lot of other people. It takes a lot of people helping and sharing and not just taking everything for themselves.
Yeah, I think Dr. Palmer might treat just about every professional team here in Phoenix, and I think that's right. I'm not sure, but I think he's with the hockey team, and I know he's with the Diamondbacks, and I think he might be with the Suns as well.
The Coyotes, I think that's your team.
The Coyotes would be the hockey team.
Yeah, I think he's with them.
And I think he is or was with the Suns as well. I'm not the basketball team. I'm not positive on that, but yeah. One of the things that I was thinking about while you were talking is, and something that's kind of been a challenge for me is, you kind of get used to your kind of called maybe somewhat standard patients that come in and how you set your care plans up. But what are some of the things you think about when you're setting up a care plan for an athlete that maybe, either has kind of a lagging injury, but he's still going to be performing the whole time, or maybe doesn't even have an injury and he's just trying to keep his performance up? What are you thinking about, and how do you set your care plans up?
I think the first thing that the athlete should do is pick the right chiropractor. Mm-hmm. I think that's very important because I know when I was competing, I had a shoulder injury and I couldn't even lift a 45-pound bar off the bench. So I sought help from a number of people who adjusted me and did a lot of other things. And then one of my classmates, John Danchek, who was past president of the Sports Council and the Hall of Famer, treated me with Nemo treatment. One treatment. I was back to doing my bench press, push-ups, everything else. Later, I had a problem when I was on the ACA Sports Council board, and some guy, young kid named Michael Leahy, said he was developing a new technique called myofascial release, which he later changed to active release. Treated me one time, shoulder was gone again, the pain. So I say go to somebody who's not going to tell you it's going to take 50 years to get you better and umpteen thousand treatments, but get you back into training safely, as quickly as they possibly can, not only training, but into competition. So learning some of those soft tissue techniques I mentioned before, people just don't realize that. Raymond Nemo, who was a chiropractor, used to say chiropractors are always enamored with the bones, but they forget the soft tissues, put those bones over there somewhere. So you've got to address both of those. And now with the advent of the Fascial Congress and the Fascial Society, we're finding that all these things like the Golgi tendon apparatus and the Pacini corpuscles and the nerve supply is all located in the fascia. And I could go on, but all these things we learn in school are contained in the fascia. It has a nerve supply, blood supply, lymphatic supply, it has stretchability. It's the only organ that covers every cell. So you've got to get to somebody who understands soft tissue, movement assessment, movement function, how to get people back functioning normally in a safe and quick manner.
Well, kind of as we kind of wrap things up, I've got a couple questions for you. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're up to in practice these days? After the, how do you follow up the Miami Dolphins?
Oh boy! Well, I've just had so many opportunities during my career, and I guess a lot of it is luck. Trying to do the best job I could, trying to be humble. Some people probably think I'm not very humble, but I try. I think that's one thing. Now, as far as practice, I had that injury on my wrist a number of years ago, so I lost the use of my left hand for a while and had to quit. But what happened was Dick Benson came along and offered me a job teaching a Graston technique. So I taught that for 10 years, where during that time, Greg Dorr and I developed the FAKTR protocols and the FAKTR concept. So that's where I turned, because I could use one hand very easily. And now I don't see people out, but it's just like this past weekend, I had a top-notch soccer player, world-class guy come in to the class and wanted to be treated, and several of us wound up looking at him, assessing him, and treating him, and had great success in one treatment. He's going to need a few more, but still, that's what I do more now. I do more consulting, more help on cases like that, and people will say, well, would you take a look at so-and-so, or give us an idea, or would you treat them, that kind of thing. So I'm more in that capacity now, and teaching classes.
All right. And I think I really want to know, what is the most exciting thing, change, development in the chiropractic field that's right on the horizon? What are you most excited to see getting researched and developed?
I think there is some great research going on by people like Mike Schneider at the University of Pittsburgh and a lot of others. And I don't want to leave out anybody else, but I just happen to know him very well and some of what he's doing. But I think we need to continue down the road of evidence. We need to look at what we do, whether it's a manipulation or whether it's soft tissue work or a combination of the both, how we can better treat the public, how we can gain trust in the public by not trying to sell them a bill of goods, but sell them true, honest chiropractic work. What we've been taught, be ethical, be honest, and use the literature when available. There are times when it isn't, but when it is, use the literature. So that's where I would like to see it go in the future, and be an evidence-based program where we can stand proud with all the other professions that provide medical care, regardless of who they are, and be there and not always be, oh, you're a chiropractor. We're called the O doctors. What do you do? I'm a chiropractor. Oh, we don't want that anymore. That's what Dick Benson the way. So anyhow, that's my personal feelings about it.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you can think of that we should talk about?
Joining the Sports Council. Let me mention that, because I'm a diehard ACA Sports Council person. I think it's a great opportunity for people to get out, join an organization with like-minded people, support the organization, their events, that the Sports Council offers. And I'll tell you, the program you just had in October back in Denver was outstanding. You had some incredible speakers, and when you get somebody like Jay Shaw from the National Institute of Health and what he delivered out there, and I don't want to just single him out because I enjoyed all the speakers I heard.
Mm-hmm.
You have world-class speakers like you had, it's incredible to be involved. So I would highly encourage everyone to come to Minneapolis next year. I think you're going to have another outstanding program. So there are just too many good things for the small amount your dues require you to pay to join the Sports Council, get involved, become an officer if you want to, serve on committees, help make it better. If you don't like something, get involved.
Yep.
I think you guys do a great job.
Well, thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you for spending a little bit of your morning with me talking about things. And I look forward to seeing you in Minneapolis, if not, if we don't bump into each other somewhere before there.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. You guys take care out there, and I hope to see you soon.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye now.